All right, good afternoon. Carl Schwartz, Incident Commander here on the Alexander Mountain Fire. Today we're showing 9,375 acres, 5% contained, 389 personnel. And I know that 5% containment may not sound like a lot, but it doesn't mean that we're not having a lot of successes. Firefighters out there working hard on the east side. We're having a lot of successes, expecting to show some more containment over that, maybe here in just the next few days. Having some successes in and around Cedar Park, in and around the homes there, and then along the 34 corridor we're having some successes. It doesn't mean we're not without challenges. It's still extremely hot. There's still some very rough topography. Fire is still in and amongst the homes, and the threat of fire crossing 34 is still very realistic. So firefighters out there working hard, and over the next coming days we do have some challenging weather with possible thunderstorms coming in, and those thunderstorms initially provide very challenging winds for us. So even though we're having some successes, there's still a lot of challenges out there. Need folks to still respect the closures and the evacuations while this firefight's still going on. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Coyle. I'm one of the Operations Section Chiefs for Southwest Area Team 1. I'm going to go around the fire starting on Highway 34 and let you know in a little bit more detail the efforts that are going on right now, and then talk about some of the contingencies that we're preparing for. So along Highway 34, from where the western edge of the fire that it's reached Highway 34, all the way back to the east of the fire where the fire ties into the canal road, that piece that we put black on the map yesterday, where it's a controlled edge, all of that is looking really good. And what I mean by looking really good is the amount of green pockets from where the unburned fuel is adjacent to the structures or adjacent to the values, the homes in there, has been reduced, or the fire has been put out along those edges. And we expect to add some more containment along Highway 34 back towards the canal road. North of the canal road, where the hand line went up on the east side of the fire above Masonville, tied back into Green Ridge, and then went all the way north to the Cameron Peak fire in the far northeast corner of the actual Alexander Mountain fire. That line is holding. Crews are continuing to patrol that line and to ensure that there's no rollout snags, anything that could cross the line and cause the fire to continue to move east above those homes that are situated just over the edge of that ridge, and then the larger number of homes that are further down the slope in Masonville. From where the fire meets the Cameron Peak fire on the northeast corner across to what's called Jug Gulch, which is a gulch that runs the drainage that runs north towards Spruce Mountain. The fire is checked up along there along a two-track road inside the Cameron Peak fire. So now that there's no timber in there and those grassy fields that did move to that, but they had scouts go all the way in back to the Jug Gulch area from the east side all the way to basically midway on the Cameron Peak scar, we're on the north side of the Alexander Mountain fire. And that fire's checked up there. We're going to add some what we call road as line, where it shows that we're using road as a control feature, and they'll continue to patrol that and make sure nothing gets across it, but it's looking real good. Yesterday I talked about if fire moves 1 mile into the Cameron Peak fire scar, that would cause us to reevaluate whether that was an effective control feature. Right now it looks like that is going to be an effective control feature, which is a big win because it gives us a large area that we don't have to focus efforts on in the near future. West of the Jug Gulch, where the fire activity was most pronounced yesterday, all the way across the northern edge of the fire till it goes south into the Cedar Park area, that edge of the fire is also looking really good, where it's bumped into the Cameron Peak fire. So we'll continue to patrol it and ensure that it doesn't move, but so far all indications are that the Cameron Peak fire will hold. Going south from the northwestern corner of the fire all the way until you leave the community of Cedar Park and get on that really steep slope above Highway 34. Efforts over the last several days have been on point protection. So as fire moves around the community, it's been, hey, protect the home, go on and protect the next home. Now what they're working on doing is connecting the dots, basically. So you have all these pieces of fire that you put out around the homes, and then you have unburned portions between them. If we were looking across this field and seeing those portions, it'd be really easy to figure out what's where. It's not that way on the ground. So a lot of effort is being put into tying those pieces of burned areas together to prevent the fire from moving further west into the more of the Cedar Park subdivision. So now below Cedar Park and to the east of the road where you access Cedar Park, there near Drake, the fire is continuing to flank, which just means that it's moving perpendicular to or parallel to the slope all the way up Highway 34, still on the north side, still on the side we want it on. However, it's continuing to move to the west. I was happy to hear the aircraft flying over, because that's more retardant that is focused on reducing that rate of spread, so reducing how quickly fire moves to the west, so crews can finish that work I described in Cedar Park, and we can plug them in and focus more on tying that piece off from the top of that very steep drainage all the way back down to Highway 34 over the coming operational periods. Once that's done, and once we're able to secure the edge above Highway 34 where it runs along the highway, then our confidence will increase that fire will not either spot across Highway 34 or spot across the road that goes up into Cedar Park and basically, threaten Cedar Park from that side. So that's where the emphasis is on for the rest of the day. We're also planning for contingencies if fire was to get across 34 and we're not able to immediately suppress it, what actions we could take. And we'll continue that planning and that preparation, along with the planning and prep of homes further up towards Drake and then beyond towards Glen Haven, until such time as we have a high degree of confidence that the fire is secured along Highway 34 and along that whole western edge. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jason Sieg, S-I-E-G. I'm the Acting Forest Supervisor on the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forests and Pawnee National Grassland, which is the local forest unit here. I grew up in Larimer County and actually started my career on this forest as a firefighter many years ago. Updating you on our employees across the forest, we have over 100 employees supporting large fires across the west right now, and about half of those employees are assigned to the Alexander Mountain Fire currently. There is there's a lot of risk right now for new starts. There's possibility of lightning coming in the next few days, and so the resources that we still have on the forest, they are available for initial attack and initial response in the event that a fire does start. We will coordinate with the CIMT and the county resources if the need arises. We also have very dry conditions right now, and we have a scarcity of firefighting resources. So today at noon on the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forests and Pawnee National Grassland, we entered into Stage 2 fire restrictions. What does that mean, Stage 2? Well, essentially it means there's no open flame of any kind allowed on Forest Service lands unless you're using a device that has an on-off switch. It also means that there's no outdoor smoking on National Forest lands along the Front Range counties and the National Forest lands in Grand County. I want to pause for just a minute and reflect on the last 5 days. This incident has been going on for 5 days, and we've had some difficult days this week. There's a lot of communities affected, and these communities are going through hard times, whether it's the uncertainty around damage to property, being evacuated for multiple days, or even the smoke impacts that we're seeing in the communities, smoke impacts to you directly or maybe a loved one. I just want you to know that I recognize that. I think all of us here standing up here recognize that, and we're in it with you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Larimer County Sheriff John Fan. The last name is F as in Frank, E-Y-E-N. And I have a couple of items here to talk about. So today the damage assessment teams, we talked about yesterday that we had lost some structures in Larimer County to the fire. The damage assessment teams were able to get up into the areas where those damages have occurred, make their assessments. As soon as we are finished here today with this press conference, I'll be joining members of our Office of Emergency Management and notifying those folks who have lost their homes or lost other structures of that. So if you get a call from me, my condolences. We will talk about that. We're going to give you some resources on what to do next if you do receive that call. Okay. Like the Forest Service, we are also stretched very thin. There's a lot going on in Larimer County. The fair is going on. We have this big fire going on, and you still depend upon us for law enforcement protection in your communities. So on Wednesday, I also asked the commissioners for fire restrictions, and basically it's just like what the Forest Service described, Director Sieg, right? We talk about no open flames unless it's propane or pressurized gas. I like the way he described it. If it's got an on and off switch and it's open flame, that would be acceptable. If it doesn't have an on and off switch, then it's prohibited in unincorporated parts of Larimer County. We've had some today this evening. We're going to have some evacuation changes. And I'm going to refer you to nocoalerts.org or to the websites for specifics. But basically, the areas around County Road 27 that were voluntary, we're lifting those restrictions, and the areas around Carter Lake that were voluntary, we're lifting those evacuation restrictions as well. Moving a little bit to the west, the first area in that was a mandatory is now a voluntary evacuation. You go further west towards the mouth of the canyon, those still remain mandatory. So rather than me messing up the geographical areas and you wondering, does that mean me or not me, I'm going to refer you to, the NOCO Alerts website, as well as the Larimer.org websites, which will contain that information. But we are lifting some of those evacuation orders. To help us with that, thank you to Governor Polis. The National Guard is coming in this evening to assist our crews with the roadblocks in some of those areas. Again, there's a lot going on in Larimer County. A lot of the staff in the Sheriff's Office, just like a lot of the staff with our regional firefighters and the Forest Service, have been online for the last 5 days, and we have a lot of other responsibilities. So I'm very, very thankful for the assistance of the National Guard and Governor Polis's approval to let us use them for the next 14 days at least. Finally, I want to talk about human beings are not the only thing that are evacuated when something like this happens that the Sheriff's Office has a responsibility for. So we have a lot of large animals, a lot of folks in our rural communities whose animals have been taken somewhere else and that we have to care for. As of this morning, that number of large animals actually equaled 100. They are over in Island Grove, over in Weld County right now because our fair is going on. And so we've had a lot of amazing partners in that arena. So the Weld County Sheriff's Office, Greeley Police Department, the 4-H and the FFA groups in Weld County, the community of Eaton, and Island Grove itself, as well as CSU Veterinarian Services, have made sure that not only are we protecting the people of Larimer County, but we're protecting the animals of Larimer County. Finally, I want to say thank you again to our regional firefighting partners, the Southwest Team 1. Driving around today, there's been some significant progress. As you've heard, we're not out of the woods yet, but they're making excellent work towards getting our folks back into the homes. I got to thank the Southwest Team 1, Glen Haven Fire Department, and Chief Ingram as well have been amazing partners in this and in addressing some needs today. And again, I greatly appreciate everybody's efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So a little bit different than yesterday. I'm going to kind of help facilitate questions and point at who's probably the best one to answer those. So we'll sort of open it up. We're going to try to keep it to about the next 15 minutes worth of questions. So we'll go ahead and get that piece started.
I have a question for the sheriff. I'm sorry, you will probably relay this.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, about the evacuations, the split. You've been keeping us up to date on mandatory versus those who are voluntary. Do you have any more information on how that split goes right now?
So, and I'm not sure as far as the numbers go, is that what you're asking for specifically?
Total number and then how many or...
All right. See, I told my team that I don't want to do the numbers. Nobody cares about the numbers. They want to know about if it's their house or not. And here you are asking that question. That's awesome. Hang on a second. I do have those numbers. Sorry, David.
I never quite got here today.
Yep.
I'll get that.
Right. No. Right now there are 2,415 people, 2,415 under mandatory, and 2,588 in voluntary evacuation areas.
Are
Those are the contacts we keep talking about. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have there been any additional structure losses? Obviously, yesterday we had the report that there were at least a dozen in Palisade Mountain Drive and Snowtop Drive, or 2 dozen. Thank you. Have we gotten any additional, or know of any additional losses overnight?
Yeah,
into
that would
today?
be.
And along those lines, do you know how many were actual residences versus outbuildings?
So let me do this one first. We did lose yesterday some additional residents or structures, not residences. To my knowledge, we did not lose additional ones overnight or into this day. To answer your part, I don't know that. I will know that in about 30, 40 minutes when I head over to our Office of Emergency Management and they have actually separated that. But I don't have that information right now, Kelly.
So 2 dozen is still accurate?
A little bit more than that.
A little,
Yep.
a little over 2 dozen?
Yeah, just a little, about 30, if I'm going to guess.
Sheriff, are those assessments complete at this point, and when can folks expect that call?
Like I said, as soon as I leave, they are complete. As soon as I leave here, I'm heading to our Office of Emergency Management, partnering up with a member of their staff. I will be making the call and letting folks know that we're going to start with primary residences. If you lost your primary residence, I'll make those calls first. If you've lost an outbuilding of some kind, I'll make those second. The member of the Office of Emergency Management there's a whole host of resources we can provide. So they'll talk about that with you.
If that was such an accident,
Sorry, go ahead. We'll come back. Yep.
Who the best to ask is, but yesterday we've heard reports of competition among other agencies for air tankers and other assets to fight the fire because of ongoing incidents elsewhere in the U.S. West. So I'm curious, have there been any requests that have been denied from that interagency center as other agencies are busy fighting large fires in California and Oregon? And then another numbers question, how many gallons of slurry and water have been dropped, do you think?
We'll start. So the first question is talking about the competition for resources. So I'll, Carl or, well, I'll have our incident commander address that one.
So when we order resources, they either get filled or don't fill. And if they're not filled, we don't necessarily know the reason why. And I would say 90% of our resources are not getting filled. It doesn't mean we're not getting resources in. We're getting resources in every day. We got more hotshot crews in today, which is a big bonus. We're getting more engines in every day, which is very helpful. So we are getting resources. So even though there's a lot of competition out there, we're not saying that we're getting nothing. We're getting plenty of resources. And then for the number of gallons of water dropped from the air, we can get that number tallied up and maybe post it on Facebook page or something like that where you can get it from.
And then just a quick follow-up. With the National Guard coming in, what is their assistance to you all look like moving forward?
So the National Guard's mostly going to assist with security type things. So helping the sheriff's office out with roadblocks, helping us out with security around camp, security in the evacuation areas.
so with that being supposedly still one of the most active areas of the fire up there in Cedar Park, how were you able to safely get assessment teams through there while crews were still actively fighting the fire?
So the question is talking about, and maybe a little bit, both sheriff and operations. We'll let operations answer that one. Did you hear them?
Yeah, so the question was, how are we able to get damage assessment teams safely into Cedar Park when they're still doing firefighting activity in there? And that is why they didn't go in there yesterday, because that part was most active. When the area that they need to do the damage assessments is safe, and when their route going in and out is safe for a period of time, then they will go in there escorted. We know where they're at. They check in and out with the division supervisor, the person that's in charge of that part of the ground. And then if we need to pull them out because of increased fire activity, we'll escort them back out of the fire area. So that's how we're able to do that.
But they were able to get to all the structures they were trying to get to today?
Per the sheriff's statement, yes, they were.
We've, over the last couple of days, we keep asking this, but it's always good to check. Have we had any injuries or deaths reported up to this point?
So have we had any injuries? The only injuries we've had are minor injuries, slips, things like that, twisted ankle. Yes, I don't know of any injuries to the public, but we have had a couple to firefighters, yes.
Any other questions? Okay.
Probably Jason won.
Jason won. Okay.
Carter, how close is that fire to the highway at its closest point? And you mentioned that's kind of such a critical line. What exactly are you doing to prevent it from hopping over?
So if you're fishing in a creek, right? So the where the water's edge touches the bank, that's how close the fire is in a lot of places. That's okay. What the problem is when the fire is further up on the slope and it is in an area where there's a lot of timber and it has the potential of creating embers that then go across the highway and land on the other side. So what we're doing to prevent that from happening is using heavy helicopters and using air tankers to reduce the number of trees that torch, reduce the fire's intensity. They're not going to put it out by themselves, but they can reduce the intensity of the fire, which reduces the spotting potential. We use this thing called a PIG, the probability of ignition. And on days like today, when it's 100 degrees, low humidity, it's 100%. Every ember that lands on receptive fuel causes a fire. So during the daytime, if we can suppress those embers and then look for opportunities at night to burn out the fuel between the fire's edge and the road, then we reduce the likelihood of embers the following day. So that's kind of the process. And as far as what we're doing in case it gets across, I think to kind of tag on what Carl said, any strategy we develop, it's important that the maximum number of resources exceeds the minimum required. So we will be continuing to adjust our strategies on what we would do if fire gets across based on where we have other resources committed and based on how many we can put into effect in the area where it crosses to ensure that we have a high likelihood of success of preventing any further loss to structures or other values.
Probably another question for you, Jason, but we keep mentioning the thunderstorms that are going to be coming and the concern about wind. Is there any specific sort of preparation plans that y'all are doing, or is it going to be mostly we see what it's like when it gets here?
So talking about thunderstorms and outflow winds and what we do to prepare for that. First thing we do is that during our morning briefings, our incident meteorologist gives us a heads up that that potential exists. We're from Arizona. We've lost a lot of firefighters due to thunderstorm outflow winds. And the next thing we do is that the incident meteorologists, they're monitoring the radar all day long, and they can see signals that suggest that wind's coming. They also are looking at the different weather sites around the fire to see if any of those outflow winds are headed towards the fire, and then they'll warn us. And then crews post lookouts to where they can see where those cells are building, especially when they start dropping virga. And then we make sure when that's not a threat, we may have a longer evacuation route to a safety zone, to an area that we could of safe harbor if the fire did erupt. When those become more likely, then we reduce that distance in a manner that's commensurate with how much time we think we're going to have, so crews can get to someplace safe. Those are the things we're doing.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I guess I have one more.
Okay, Kelly, yeah.
You talked about more hotshot crews. Can you tell me how many hotshot crews you have? I know the total personnel you gave us.
Yeah, total
But
hotshot
how many
crews right now.
numbers of just hotshot crews that you've been able to access?
So how many hotshot crews do we have, I think was a question.
Yeah.
And so we currently have 3 that are engaged on the fire, 2 more arriving. So we should have 5 and possibly 1 more, so maybe 6 before it's all over. Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great if we could get all those. 20 on the hotshot crew. It could be a few more, but 20 per hotshot crew.
Great, thank you. Any last questions? Awesome, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll plan on 4 p.m. again tomorrow. Same time, same place. We're working on building up our infrastructure here to hopefully maybe a little bit of shade. It'd be great. And some better mapping products for folks to be able to take a look at and for us to point to. So we'll keep evolving this as we get our feet underneath us here, but we really appreciate you guys and getting the message about all the hard work that the firefighters are doing. So thank you, appreciate it.